On, yes, no. It's on now, yes. Okay, then I'll introduce our next speaker, Peter Koppel as well from SEB. So I'll give you the word to you. Yep.
Well, that was a short introduction. Really, I am Peter. I work for SEB. I actually work for private banking. What I do is I manage investment portfolios. But the funny thing is that sometimes I have to explain why they are managed in the way they are. And this generates a whole a nice amount of information and hopefully also competence. And competence basically is, or potential competence is why I'm here. So I manage money. I'm not a traditional analyst, so I might be a little bit different. So don't be scared. And I think that we might have time for a couple of questions later on. And therefore, I think we should start. You know the title, End of an Experiment Will Hurt Us All. Very, very, very serious title, of course. And if you would like to know what is the experiment, some of you probably know, and some of you probably at least sort of try to think what it might be. This is the experiment where governments actually borrow too much. And the only solution in order for the system to maintain working, let's be honest, civilization to stay up, was to start printing money. And the funny thing was that printing money did not generate inflation until it did. Some of the politicians tend to say that, oh, this is because of the fault of Putin. And I have tried to explain it like that the cake was actually baked in Western Europe. And this is energy policy. So the topping might be a little bit to do with the global energy trends, and the cherry on top is this guy who has nuclear button, but is really nothing more than a CEO of a failing gas station. So this is the overall situation. Governments borrow too much. Money printing was the solution. Interest rates in zero and less were the solution. And this finally generated inflation, which was a major surprise to us all, probably. And now this experiment in some stage is basically ending. And if you look at these graphs on the right, I'm not going to make jokes about the picture on the left. Some of you will understand, as I understand from laughing. But if you look at the pictures on the right, they're quite small. But this shows the percentage increases of central bank balance sheets. And this actually means how much money has been printed. And this is percentage-wise, and this has been extraordinary. And this is the main culprit of inflation. And if you start trying to contain the inflation, then you have to start reversing this graph. So you have to start decreasing the balance sheet of central banks. You have to start picking up the excess liquidity from the system. You have to generate a situation where money has a price again. Because liquidity for several years didn't have actual price. If you start asking, well, they're still charging for me for my mortgage, of course we are. Thank you. But in general, this means that you have to gather the excess liquidity from the system. You have to generate the situation where money has a price again. And what is furthermore important is the fact that you will have to try to generate the situation where the price of money and risk have a connection again. This was also lost, and this generated major distortions in the system. So the experiment was printing money. The experiment was very low interest rates, and now in order to contain the inflation, which wasn't supposed to come, all these processes have to be technically reversed. Which means that, you will have to see all the good processes that you were experiencing also reversed. Another issue is, of course, energy. And as I mentioned, the cake was baked by the politicians in Europe, and not really that much it has actually less to do with Putin than many want to understand. But once again, this is one of the main reasons we are not feeling that well, especially in the Baltics and in Estonia, because our energy cocktail that we are using is quite, it doesn't taste that good and it's quite expensive. So we were hoping that our energy bill won't be that high, but our energy bill is exactly as high as Mr. Snoop Dogg on the picture. So we have inflation, we have a situation where excess liquidity has to be picked up from the system, we have high energy prices. But inflation, this is the positive news. It's already in a decline, as you can see from the little blip at the end of the graph. And why is it on a decline? It's on a decline that prices tend to rise further than anyone understands, but at one point it's a little bit too much, and then inflation begins to decrease a bit. And especially when you move on at time scale, because you will be measuring your inflation against the period where prices had already risen. So the further you go in time, the less inflation you can have, but this doesn't mean the prices would come down. Oh no, this means just the price increases stop. Or if they come down a little. And what else? In Europe, of which we depend on very much, the trouble is that Europe is lagging US, and in US, inflation might be peaking somewhat where in the future or nearer future, but Europe is lagging, so this means that there is a certain kind of probability that in Europe we haven't even seen the peak yet. So it's a little bit contradictory between those two graphs. And what else is bringing inflation down? There has been demand destruction. Demand destruction is due to the fact that, well, if you have higher mortgage payments and if you have higher energy bills, you probably won't be ordering that much stuff from China because you don't have sufficient funds. And this actually shows that there is how should I put it? Well, if you know that an engine has certain amount of revs, or if you sort of step on the gas pedal or to the electrical accelerator pedal, which Norwegians tend to use more, the revs are higher. So, but the revs of the economic engine are getting slower. And you can see that there has been demand destruction due to high energy prices and due to also inflation. And you can see that freight rates are coming down, and they're coming down quite seriously because there's no more high demand. So, and this is something which correlates very well with the inflation. So in general, I would say that inflation pace is decreasing, the pace of inflation is decreasing, but we are not talking about prices going back to the level of 2019. And another issue which still remains is, as I said, the main problem was debt. And the governments accumulated huge amounts of debt. And in order for them not to become insolvent, money printing was very, very much required. Now, the trouble there is that debt hasn't gone anywhere. The pandemic actually generated the situation where the debt got debt to GDP ratios of developed world governments got even higher and higher and higher. So this is not a good situation. And which is problematic is that actually the countries or the world, or especially developed world, is rather unable to bear higher real rates. What is a real rate? Real rate is basically something that you pay for your credit, and you take the inflation off of it, and if it's the deeper in the red it is, the better situation you as a credit taker are, because it is chewing the actual value of your debt burden. So this means that if you are having like a 10% inflation and you are having 2 plus, or let's say 4% cost on your credit, then your real rate is -6, and -6 is quite nice to have. And this means that even if central banks are saying that, oh, we have to fight inflation, we have to get the inflation down to 2%, well, probably it's not going to happen, because if you take, for example, Italy, very nice food, nice people, even the cars are getting a little bit with a higher quality. Of course, Norwegians are not buying gas Alfa Romeos, I know. It's not sustainable, so we shouldn't. And but their debt burden is so high that they are very much unable to bear higher real rates. So this means that rates will go higher, but they won't go crazy high. They won't go as high as Snoop Dogg. And another issue which is a little bit problematic is the fact that we are looking into a situation where we might be going to a global recession. Now, global recession is something which is very rare. And this is one of my favorite indicators. It's global credit impulse. And global credit impulse means new credit in relation to GDP. If no one is willing and able to take additional credit because it has gotten more expensive, then they're probably not investing, they're probably not consuming. And if they're not investing, not consuming, guess what happens to the economic growth? So this is the background. We have high energy prices, we have high inflation, we have interest rates going higher, and we have quite big opportunity or possibility for a global recession. So there's not going to be a soft landing. This is actually illustrated by this graph, because everything is moving to quite, well, some would say reasonable sort of, it's going closer to the mean, and it's normalizing, well, but the normalizing might be quite uncomfortable. Then we have war in Ukraine. As I said, I'm not a very big fan of Mr. Putin. Probably no one is, except himself and a couple of his cronies. And this generates, unfortunately, additional tension in the global economy and also in the economy of Estonia and the Baltics. And therefore, I most sincerely hope that he will fail, and he will fail miserably. Really, really miserably. So it's not just Ukrainians have to win, but Russians have to lose. How should I put it? Very, very thoroughly. They really have to lose. Then we have Chinese economy. Usually it helps out the global economy. Well, the most important thing to understand about China is that communists lie, and communists lie always. If they are telling you that they might be opening up the economy, they won't. And there are protests. Then the real estate market. It's over-leveraged, overextended, and absolutely in a very, very, the tensions there are very, 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 very high. But funny thing is that if I search up from Google news about Chinese real estate, then there are all the years that I've rounded with red, basically state in Financial Times that the real estate there is in a bubble and it's going to burst. It's going to burst eventually, but to time it's rather difficult. The main question in China right now is reopening, and of course what is going to happen with the protests. So interest rates are going to be rising. That I already explained. Then you basically also see that what has happened to the 10-year yield of German bond, the extent of which in a very short period of time, the yield has risen. It's also rather uncomfortable. The rise isn't uncomfortable for economy as itself, but especially the speed is unfortunately uncomfortable. So we have Mrs. Lagarde saying that yes, we're going to be raising interest rates, and we have the Italian guy who is not very keen on real interest rates rising. So, and probably, well, this 1.5 where we have Eurozone pace right now, it's basically nothing. But once again, the speed of the rise is something which is problematic. And this has generated the situation where on the asset markets, probably you have seen also that from your investment portfolios. The picture is the exact following. And by the way, just the crypto is never coming back. Bye-bye. But now we have to go to the Baltics. And I really had to give you the big background because we are a small, dynamic, or used to be dynamic country, which very much depends on its main export partners. And export partners depend on the global situation. So, economy in a nutshell. Real estate is very, very, very interesting. Basically, I think it was, I live in Kalamaja, which is gentrified. I moved there before it was cool. This is a hipster area, and I think that they are currently charging $250,000 for basically something but what I would call a small wardrobe. So this is not very, very understanding. So what is happening that in all the countries, the prices of real estate due to money printing have been extremely high. So this is one of the issues which everyone is paying very much attention to, but for me it's not that important. But what is important that we are catching up. We're catching up. We're richer than Portugal. Yes. So this means that in 30 years we have managed to do something which can be considered very much a miracle, and hopefully this will continue. And if you look at the trend line, it's not just we are getting richer, the old Europe is getting a bit poorer. What is also interesting is that if we look at consumer goods and services and inflation forecast, then there we can see that the average price level is getting very, very close to Eurozone average, or is already in Estonia exceeding that. So this means that some of the inflationary pressures will come down because the price convergence is over. Something which I like very much, which has in part to do a little bit with the money printing, is that new economy is taking hold. This means that you will basically have these couple of guys with a computer and making very nice PowerPoint presentations and talking about the future, generating a larger and larger piece of GDP. And this is very good because this is moving higher on the value chain. This is more productivity, and this is using less economic resources in order to generate economic value. And this would be something probably the most positive or the most economic, optimistic and positive chart that I'm showing you today. Now, one of the questions is that has the war actually influenced our investment environment too much? And the answer is, well, probably not. Because if you look at the overall situation, there were many projects which were put on hold at the end of February, but they still came back to those in the beginning of summer. So the increase in riskiness or risk premium of three countries has indeed increased, but not that much. Labor markets are very strong. You probably, if you have tried to employ someone in Estonia, you have understood that if he wears a white shirt and can write an email in English, he's going to be demanding a rather high salary. and everyone who is willing to work is working, and even some of those who are not willing to work are already also working. And the trouble there is, of course, that they are not going to be very productive. But this is an actual situation. It's the involvedness of population in the job market is the highest in the European Union. And another issue which is interesting is that migrationary trends are shifting. Lithuanians are moving back. Some of the Estonians are moving back. And the thing is that the income levels have become sufficient. And being in a maybe rather unpleasant environment just to earn some money is not so fun as it used to be. But the trouble is that population is very much aging. So we are going to have higher and higher amounts of people who are old, which in itself is for an economist is not a very good trend. But there is a difference, because if I look at my mother, if I look at my grandmother who passed away already several years ago, my mother is 72 years old. She's a teacher and she is working 1.5 jobs and is completely happy and energetic. When my grandmother was 72, she was tipping her cookies in coffee, wearing a beret, and remembering good old times with her friends. So it's a bit different. Working 1.5 jobs and doing paragliding versus tipping your cookies in coffee. And this shift actually means that maybe we are in a situation where we have gained during a generation 10 years of more sort of active life. And inflation in Estonia is the highest, and one of the reasons is the fact which I just mentioned, that we have everyone who wants to be working is working, and some of those who don't want to work are already also working. And we have a quite unpleasant energy mix that we are using. But there are some things which are getting less expensive. In Estonia, CD records. Yes, they're getting less expensive than traditional video cameras in Latvia. Fantastic. And for some reason, pregnancy tests in Lithuania. I really don't want to go into that. But some things are getting less expensive. But consumers are not very happy. They are not very happy because of, first of all, the war, and they are not very happy because of the possible economic prospects. In all the Baltic countries, they're not happy at all. In Estonia, they are as sad as they were at 1994. And believe me, 1994 was rather different than the situation now. But they're still buying. It's very, very well. One could say that if the inflation is very high and you think that, okay, I will buy the washing machine for 500 euros because in 3 months it's going to be 600 euros. Part of it is that, but otherwise it's still, I would say, interesting disparity between consumer confidence and the actual retail sales. Consumer confidence is, if you ask people, and retail sales is what they actually do. And wage growth, I already explained why is that happening. It's happening everywhere. And the funny thing is that the politicians are saying that, oh, it's terrible that wage growth is less than inflation. Well, it was real wages increased for 10 years from 6 to 8%. It was the paradise of proletariat. And now you have 1 year where real wages are decreasing, then it's considered to be a catastrophe. Well, it's actually not. Households, well, they were unable to spend their money during the pandemic, and now they have a very nice buffer. So, and if you look at what has happened to the sort of amount of money held in banks that the consumers are having, it hasn't been starting to decrease, but people have stopped saving. And this is understandable when we are having inflation at the level of 20 to 25%. So their costs have been increasing. But in general, if I would sort of have to wrap it up, if I would be a pessimist, I would show that picture. If I would be an optimist, I would show you Riga. I have to admit that you have to, if you start looking at the Baltics and Estonia, then the internal factors driving the economy are not that important, just because 80% of GDP is export. And if you would think that, okay, 80% of GDP is export. Now the question is that who are the main export partners? They're Germany, Finland, Sweden. So if you want to have a grasp on the Estonian economy, what you would basically have to do is that you would have to have a clear vision what is going to be going on in Germany, and then you add some leverage to it. If German economy drops 2%, Estonian economy will drop 4.5%. It's basically that simple, because of most of GDP is very much in connection with main export partners. Another issue is, of course, what is happening on the job market, and that is very, very tight. And this generally actually explains the fact that why I spent more than 10 minutes talking about global economy. And that's that. And we probably have time for a couple of questions. Ladies first.
Thank you. So what do you think, what the US dollar compared to the euro, what is this?
There's a funny story. The dollar turned around against the euro, or euro turned around against the dollar at maybe mid-September. And right before that, I had very, very, very many people calling me and panicking that should I convert all my euros to, or at least some of them, to dollars. And I said, now it is too late. And then they said, Peter, are you sure? I said, sure, I'm sure. And not very surprisingly, in 1.5 weeks, there was a major sort of turnaround. And I would have to say that today, it's easier for euro to go up than the dollar. It has already gone up quite significantly if you look at the context, but it's easier for euro to go up a little bit, and it's going to be very much dependent on the interest rates differential. And what is, as I said, that Europe is always lagging the US. So if the US Central Bank, Federal Reserve, won't be raising interest rate as fast as they did, then Europeans will reach to their sort of peak speed of raising interest rates. And this means that the interest rate differential will decrease. And this means that the attractiveness of dollar as a currency to deposit and to get higher interest rate on will also decrease further.
Normally to fight inflation, there's been a reduction in interest rates around 3%. And of course, with 1.5% today, we can't go negative again.
Yeah.
Do you think we will see interest rate goes another 1.5% plus before we see any price stimulation?
I would say that interest rates usually tend to rise until something bad happens, and until there is a trouble in some financial issues, until something breaks. We have been seeing some of the things breaking. As I mentioned, crypto, it's completely, the failure has been fantastic, but that is not that much connected to the overall financial system. Another issue is that we're seeing that some of the Swiss banks are not feeling very, very comfortable. If they break, there might be a sort of pivot from the sides of central banks. But the trouble there is that if they pivot and the excess liquidity is still in the system, then there's going to be additional boost of inflation, and everyone is going to be rather unhappy about that. And my main scenario currently is that we are going to have a double tip or twin peaks of inflation. We just had the one peak. We're going to be seeing it going down, but the generation where something breaks because of high interest rates, central banks pivot, but the excess liquidity is still in the system, and there's going to be another boost of inflation. One more, maybe. One more.
In relation to the inflation here in Estonia, you didn't pick up the political reform of the pension system. How was that?
Because politicians, especially those responsible for the pension reform, tend to say that it didn't have any influence. I tend to illustrate it with the following example. Let's take a huge supermarket at the end of Friday. Or let's take a huge supermarket on a usual Saturday, 2 o'clock. Now let's take the next Saturday, 2 o'clock, and in between there is news that people would be getting from 6 to 70,000 euros, which they were not expecting. Is there going to be more cars on the second Saturday in front of the supermarket or not? The answer is, of course, yes. This means that it generated additional demand, and this also means that it contributed to inflation. Now, to measure it, how much did it contribute to inflation? This would be probably very, very menial job to do, and would probably need someone who has much thicker glasses and much better understanding in statistics and mathematics than I have. So yes, it contributed. How much? I have no idea.
Okay, thank you very much, Ian. We'll give you as well. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah. Our next speaker is Rita from Enterprise Estonia. So then I will give the word over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm on, I think so. Yeah, that sounds strange. Then I'm on. I will put it this away. What I would like to thank you to men that talked before me, presenting about the importance of export, because of what I'm working with. But otherwise, I'm in big trouble, because after such brilliant and charming presentation, my presentation will be very simple, very easy, very generic, sorry about that. So but otherwise you can sleep, you can relax, you can do whatever you want. And I'm quite sure it will be shorter as well. Today I would like to tell you how we develop even greener Estonia with AS, where you can find the help, what we're doing, and how we understand that. It will be this one, I suppose. Yes, I will take 3 main topics today. First, maybe I will present myself. My name is Rita Venskuvenia, that I think everybody in the assembly Lithuanian. I live in Norway 17 years. Work in business, procurement. Last 3 years I work at AS. Before I was procurement manager in building construction and built actually landmarking projects with Brimnor, like sun panel facades and everything. So I know the topic by heart, but not in the main economy, more in the practical way. So the next topic, it will be about our very own sustainability team at AS that works with sustainability in the organization and with the programs, grants, everything that can help you as Estonian companies. And also the third one, I've been asking also to talk about the investments. Unfortunately, my good colleague from Norway, America, she's Estonian, she couldn't come because she has some other visits to do. I will cover this a little bit. But you see her contacts, and anyway, any interesting, just ask her about the investment. She really good at that. there. And what I want to talk about sustainable profile for the companies. Why it's so important, I will tell you later. But what is sustainable profile? Many things it's only the environmental, climate, or how much pollution we put it out. But it's only the beginning. I think about sustainability as the big system. Sustainable way to work is not only to let's say not polluting, or it's also giving the good environmental for your workers, because then they stay, you don't need to chase them. Sustainable way to work as a procurement team, how you treat your suppliers. There's many things that we can talk about this, and I don't want to again give too general information, but I just telling you how Norwegians think about sustainability. They not think one little part, they think the whole system. And I think many of you knows that. Sustainable climate, we can also talk in hours, but it's basically everything. And why I'm showing this, can you think a meeting in your company talking about the topics, about the real topics? What are you doing? Why I'm telling this? Because in my experience, I worked with hundreds of Estonian companies. You are much more sustainable, your profile is much better than you know. Many times I've been in meetings where people were scared because Norwegians asking this sustainability profile or that documentation. You have that. Just really try to understand what you have, what your suppliers have, like material suppliers, for example, for instance. And then you see that you have much more than you actually understand. That's my encouragement for you to try to think about this and put it on your agenda. Nevertheless, what is very important is social sustainability in Norway. It's the main topic on supply assessment, which I have done hundreds. If you are not social sustainable, if you not treat your workers in the right way, if you're not paying the right fair salary, they will not work with you. It's also about what you're doing about human rights, how you educate your people, how much diversity and inclusiveness are in your plans, in your mindset. And also important how ethical business management you have. It's for the workers, it's for the stakeholders, on shareholders, for everyone. What are you doing for the anti-corruption, anti-money laundering? And again, back to my topic as a procurement manager, what you are doing with your suppliers, how you choose them and how you treat them. Because you can't be sustainable if you change your suppliers 3 times a year. That doesn't work in that way. You use so much energy, so much time, traveling, working to put new supplier in your production, for example, or the business, and this is not sustainable. And then I can tell you why sustainable business model is so important. First, I liked one interesting comment from my colleagues that told me that yes, it's difficult to come to the Norwegian market, but even worse to come out. Why? Because they think they're in a sustainable way. When they have you as supplier and they're happy with that, they will keep you as long as possible. I can make one simple example from yesterday evening when I got information that one Estonian company got 2 million euro contract because they done very good in the previous project. And even we really had some problems with this tender, it went still well. So, and then Norwegians told me that, Rita, we know it's expensive, it's troubling, but we believe in them because they done a wonderful job with that, all the supply assessment. So again, it's a reality, it's not a nice words or something. And I think everybody knows that final consumers, they already demand sustainable products. In Norway, you can even go to the restaurant and see how much CO2 was polluted from this particular fish eating or something. So they think this as a lifestyle, as a living motto, not like 1 or 2 things. And And they also understand that ecological is not necessarily sustainable. So it's also a little bit big different. You know also that investors already testing your business in how sustainable you are, how environmental you are. Even they didn't tell you. This one of the topics where you get to there. And a sustainable company, of course, you are much better positioned. What's sleeping? Because a sustainable company is much more attractive, both for the investors, for suppliers, for clients, and for the workers as well. Workers notice very well and very quickly how good work environment you have. Do they want to stay or they want to leave? I think the last time I talked to some people working at the factory, they told that, yeah, I can get like €100 better salary in the neighbor factory, but I like to be here because I like my colleagues, I like my boss, and we have good team. This is also important to know. So my suggestion reflect how the climate target and other sustainable targets affect your business model. I'm quite sure, I wrote here, is it threat or possibilities? I'm quite sure it's many more possibilities, or even the threats you can make to possibilities. And then we came to where we could help you with this. We have in ATS very sustainable team, what was we call it? Kerli, Kertu, and Aller. We started from our own organization because how we can teach you or learn you or tell you if we don't know about our organization. So those people are first working on to do our organization very sustainable, and then we take from there and try to help you. I don't want to tell about all these possible and impossible targets, but we have the 3 directions. As you can see, all the first is more for our own organization, and the second is what I like most as a practical approach, is the product and service approach. There you have already few programs out, few as under work. You have grants, you have the financial tools and supportive tools that help you to be more sustainable. I will show you some links later on where you can check. And also it's very important how to work on the green country image. In my eyes, Estonia is coming very, very far. And you actually don't need to run. You just need to stay where you are and work from there, slowly and efficiently. And what is our development goals? It's triple transmission. Everybody loves digitalization. Me too. Sustainability and innovation. We try to attract high-value companies, added companies, with the grant programs, with the master classes, what we do. Also, I encourage Estonian companies, please share with other companies your practice, because what we do is not the same. You are the people that do that in the practice. We can just help you to share. Also, I can tell you a lot about sustainability in Norway later on, because the time frame is not here. I can talk about this in hours, maybe days. But you have my contacts. I'm here in networking, so please just ask me. And we're trying already, we haven't done yet, we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint in the organization. Also, it's a long story short. It's starting from the collective transport and finishing about how much paper we use per day. And then is the programs I mentioned it. I can read them, but this doesn't make any sense. If somebody's interested, can take a photo. We will do everything like training programs, masterclass in circular economy. It's really interesting. We do the analysis. We have already grants. And these grants I love best. Why? Because it's for manufacturing industry. And as unfortunately leaving ambassador told, that industry and manufacturing in the country is one of the main things for the security and independence. So my encourage is, okay, we will need to think about digitalization and this kind of stuff, but let's keep know-how in the country. And let's not to be dependent on the main things from outside too much. And I work with a lot of factoring companies. I think maybe in my portfolio is 80% about somebody that producing something in Estonia. And this is kind of easy maybe way to export too. We will do study trips, we will do sustainable tourism activities. I don't know so much about this, I just repeating what they told me. And also we will try to attract foreign investments. Just a second, I need to find my next list. Yes, there. The next part is about investments. And now I will just read what I got from my colleague. So any questions, still ask. Everybody knows that Estonia has been a strong maritime country for the centuries. Until now, the benefits of the large sea area was most fishing and sea transport. But now everything that turn around, and now the wind farms that is most important topic. And you became the front runner with countries like Netherlands and UK and Denmark and even Norway. And the country aims to be a place where new technological solutions for offshore wind farms are developed, tested and manufactured. For this purpose, a unique laboratory will be made or created near Saaremaa. In this offshore wind technologies innovation area, it will be companies from all around the world can test, develop and work on their solutions on the floating wind turbines, subsea stations, robots, services, maintenance drones, and autonomous ships. And as export advisor, I can't see better solution how to get foreign investments and people to Estonia and to work on this basic. So this is one of the things. But it doesn't stop there. Recently was tender announced, not a very long name, but it's about wind farms. And this already attracted interest of 30 companies planning to build offshore wind farms here in Estonia. And few of them are from Norway. And I really hope that it comes with investments from Norway. We're still waiting for some procedural things and common understanding, but I think we're quite close, as much as I can see, not being investment advisor. Your government and parliament done everything to simplify, to do it really simple and easy than to do the complicated. And the time, I think the original time was about 5-6 years. Now it's shortened to 3 years. So basically, next 3 years it will happen something interesting, and you have the goal to be in 2030 to use 100% of electricity from your renewable sources. It's really bold. I really proud of Estonia that have this on the government level, and unfortunately I think it will be not cheap. But then we need to find how to attract more investments to Estonia to keep this going. And this now they started with integrated planning permits with no long explanation. It will quicker also 1 year more. So basically in 2 years we can already see some results. In 3 years it will be decided. And Estonia has a grand goal, also very bold, to become a largest producer of wind energy per capita in the world. And you have the sea, you have everything, you have people, you have technologies, why not? And then what I also told you about. And this is nice. In April, your Prime Minister was visiting Norway with very great green agenda. I was working mostly on the business delegation program and meetings, so I was not that much involved. Christy was there, thank you. I've done B2B meetings program, but here you can see this Aker Offshore Wind giving their application to the Kayakollas to have this seabed permit process for offshore wind. Don't ask me details, I don't know. But as I understand, it's really an important step. And I hope that Aker Offshore Wind will come here. Christy, you have some connections there. How it sounds for you?
Yeah, they will be early next year.
You see, she knows more than me. That's why I always asking people, please share the experience or ask me. Even I can't give you the exact answer. I can at least tell you where to find the information, how to work with that. And just to tell you about the sustainability, very simple. Every single building in Norway, before they get a building permission, before they start the dig, I think you know that too, one of the first documents is Miljøplan, environment plan, that include everything from the architects, what they need to do, how they need to project, engineering, building company, and even final users. This is how important sustainability is in Norway. In all the tenders, you see first you need to meet or pass some sustainable goals, some sustainable requirements before you can be even pre-qualified for the next step. So I don't know how much more I can tell you about the Norwegian sustainability. I told you it will be short, but maybe some questions or ask me about the topics.
Can maybe ask one question since you mentioned a little bit. I very much agreed what you mentioned, that Norwegians, we are quite loyal when we develop our business relationship. And the big difference what I see here in the Baltics, that then the money is not the driving force of keeping that relationship. Meaning that if we have a good relationship, we work together. If you increase your prices some, but everything's at a fair level, then that won't stop using you as a supplier.
Exactly.
But this loyalty is not the other way around in the Baltics, unfortunately, in many cases, which scares off a little bit. And then when you say sustainability is then important with that in regards, do you see it as a worthy investment, like a competitive advantage for Estonian companies to focus on this and front this in their advertising?
I would say it's not even the thought about this. You need to have on your agenda. You need to have on your slides. On your first 2 slides, you need to talk about how sustainable you are. Okay, back to the tenders. There is about price, as you know, it's about 40%, maximum 50%. The rest is soft values, and your sustainable profile is at least 30%. So if it doesn't help you, I don't know how we can help you.
I know that this sustainability, is it then to use recyclable materials, or what would be the main, what would be the biggest beneficiary to kind of get an advantage?
I would say, as I told you, few points how sustainability works in Norway. But if you have the circular economy in the many companies. I see it, just you don't realize that. Tell them how circular your economy is, what you are doing with the materials that is left, how you can use them, why you, there's no matter it's wood or something else. Also, pollution, how much CO2. If you didn't have EPD, for instance, or LCA for the building construction, I'm quite sure your suppliers have that. So please ask them. So don't think that you need to do everything on your own. It's a circle. It's a circle economy. So what your suppliers do, what you do, and then you choose also your client in the way that it works in the system.
Any other questions from anybody else?
I told it will be boring.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not questions so much, but anyway, you were talking about innovation and decarbonization and so on. I just had experience where we applied one grant from Enterprise Estonia to Ida-Virumaa County, and it was this from Just Fund, Just Transition Fund, and the Just Transition Fund is targeted to energy and to industry, and when developers, let's say, in that county wanted to develop innovative approach to energy, but they didn't create so much jobs there. But you know what was the main condition from Enterprise Estonia side?
Don't know.
It was how many jobs you create. Exactly, and that's so real that.
I agree.
Excuse me.
But when have you complained to that? Have you give them feedback? Because
Yes.
we're not allowed to be in this process. We're only allowed to sometimes to
It's
give
coming from Europe.
from your. But it's still, if you're applying for the grants for sustainability, they can't ask you about how many jobs. They in the worst case, they can ask if somebody will lose the job. Then I understand that is a minus. But I totally agree and I apologize, but it's not in my power, unfortunately. But yes, I agree, because unfortunately some people still sitting there and doing the job like, the copy paste from one project to another without understanding. That's why we're happy to have our own team that start to understand the system. And they're not alone. We're working here. I here presenting their team. We will have, most likely in April next year, the Green Wave conference, where we'll focus on the sustainability in Scandinavia. So we try to do our best, but I understand that we're still struggling.
I will take one more then, so for time then, if there's nobody else. Overall, since you know a lot about procurement and supply chain, I understand as well. And typically when you issue the contracts, then you want to ensure that sustainability has been thought of all the way to the end raw materials. So now Estonia has advanced more, it's more advanced manufacturing, it's no longer just producing raw materials here anymore. Are the Estonian companies good enough today to gather this sustainability from their subcontractors along the way? So
they have much bigger possibilities again than you use. You are ready for that, you have everything. Just don't be shy. I always repeating myself in Estonia, don't overthink. You are overthinkers, sorry guys. Don't overthink and don't be shy. It's not show off. You are talking about what are you doing. You can't win the project if you're not proud about what you're doing, if you're not proud about your team. So please put it on the agenda, and if you need any help to understand where in the presentation it's okay to get some sentence, so ask me.
thank you very much then. Yep. Thank you very much. Okay, then we are more or less back on schedule again. Then last one we have Christian Jansen from Glamox. Yep. You'll be allowed to introduce your own topic. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you. I'm very pleased actually to be here today and to talk about a little bit sustainability and Glamox. My name is Christian. I have been working in Glamox 12 years already, mostly as a quality manager in our Keila factory. But during the last year and a half, more like working with Glamox sustainability agenda and more with the operations. For those who actually don't know what animal this Glamox is, then Glamox is a company, Norway-based company, who manufactures luminaires and distributes those, and especially then professional ones, which means that it's very difficult to actually find any Glamox products from retail shops. It's more like project-based solutions that we do and manufacture. And in Keila, we have one of our biggest factories. Altogether, we have 11 factories actually in Glamox Group. Good. My today's topic is the practical of sustainability focus in industrial company. But maybe I would actually like to start with this big question, what we have in this conference, to where the Estonia is actually heading. I actually had a few weeks back quite good experience, and which might actually lift some of the topics that we also need to be solved in the near future. Regarding this energy transformation, that we had a good speech from Green Tiger, we clearly see that we have some long-term targets probably set in place by policymakers, but definitely we have some short-term targets as well that needs to be covered. Especially what I would like to actually point is the not maybe so pleasant debate or the process that was between this Alexela and Elering regarding the LNG terminal in Paldiski. I think this wasn't actually a very good approach, and there I definitely see that the policymakers, if they don't have like encourage and willingness for the cooperation with the private companies, it's actually very difficult to achieve our sustainability targets. And the sample that I would like to actually give you is the situation when our manufacturing company in Keila purchased the district heat from company Entec. And Entec is actually serving the district heat to, I think it was like for 35 companies. And we are located in this industrial park in Keila. And what they actually said that we were aware that well, they are using LNG to provide us the heat, yeah, during the winter. But what actually I realized a few weeks back that actually it isn't like this winter, because of uncertainty that they have enough LNG, and as the LNG price is higher, they have decided to provide the heat using burning oil instead. Yeah, if you look at the emission factors, okay, the burning oil and the LNG difference, it isn't that markable, but it's actually still there. What my point is that this actually very much interacts or makes a very much difference, impacts us as industrial companies who has ambition targets to be, let's say, a net zero by 2030, as our company has. And the reason also what they said was that, well, they're forced to use basically the best priced fuel, and this was the burning oil. So therefore, I'm saying that the policymakers must actually look the shorter challenges what we have. Yes, we have the first question.
Not a question, but across the street, you have district heating network which is based on biomass. So
yeah, maybe.
You can just say to your guys there in the Entec that take the pipeline into there and that's it.
Yeah. But that's actually the challenge, yeah. And also not all the companies are not maybe so much willing to take in use this biomass so quickly. So yeah, there's still quite a lot of exploration that needs to be done, even if we are talking to sustainability so much nowadays. But about the Klamox and what has been our response into the sustainability agenda. It was 2020 Q4 when in Klamox Group managers actually decided that, well, yeah, sustainability, it seems to be, it's a hot topic and we must start working with this. So the Klamox sustainability strategy development started then. And basically end of 2021 Q1, it was developed, the sustainability strategy, and in the strategy is highlighted like 4 pillars. The first pillar is very much related to our products that we manufacture for our customers, enabling sustainability for the clients. Then the environmental excellence operations, which is very much my lead in Klamox Group. And then we have the responsible leadership and light up people and society, which are a little bit softer, but it seems to be that also very important nowadays. Diversity, well, it's very much in agenda everywhere actually. And then this how we as a lighting industry actually can impact the electricity consumption. So some smart engineers have actually calculated that 15 to 20% of the world's electricity consumption is related with lighting industry. So let's be honest, this is quite a big part and a very big opportunity as well to make a good business, let's be honest. Because what I have also said all the time is that if the company isn't profitable, then we are not sustainable. So yeah, we can't do only the nice things. So, but those nice things must be integrated definitely into our daily decision-making processes. Yeah, about footprint, maybe this is good to highlight that roughly like 90% of the footprint of the luminaire is related with the use phase. Therefore, the efficiency, I mean the lumen per watt, how much electricity the luminaire is actually consuming, is important. Luckily, even if we were a little bit late to the party, as we say in Klamox, with the sustainability agenda, we already actually had very good products because they are professional ones, they are quality products. We have a very good product to sell to customers, and that fits very nicely into the sustainability agenda. I have actually in the end of my slides, I have one very good sample as well regarding the luminaire, but the luminaire itself actually is only a half of the solution to reduce the energy consumption, electricity consumption. The best actually what you can get out is if you combine it with a light management system. So I think we already had today quite a nice speech about getting light when you actually need and turning off when you don't need it and so on. So this is definitely also important part that you should think through how you actually take in use all those modern technologies. Klamox has really big ambition. It's to be a net zero company by 2030, obviously in our own operations. But now about a little bit, let's do a small step into the deeper, into the strategy implementation process. But when I'm talking about this, then what is important to actually bear in mind is that in Klamox Group we have 11 factories. Let's say that we have like 5-6 factories which are bigger ones, and then we have smaller ones which are not, in some cases, even a little bit hard to actually name factory, because yes, they do some assembly, but not as a factory as we think, and then as we operate in 17 countries, then it's a really big challenge when we start thinking about gathering environmental data, which I'm very much responsible. So, because you must reach today every factory, every office space, and if we haven't actually gathered this data before, then it is a challenge for the people. So as I mentioned it, 2021 Q1, basically it was decided that strategy is now so much ready that we can start implementing. Everything was cool. We appointed pillar leaders and we started this implementation. Quite actually quickly understand that it's very difficult to move on with this strategy because we were lacking of experience and enough knowledge how to do it exactly. Because yes, we have the strategy developed, we have the activities in the strategy, but the strategy was missing one important part. This was proper as-is analysis based on data. I mean, we have the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Yes, nice, let's start doing those activities, let's start reducing emissions. But how big those emissions actually are? Nobody didn't know that quite exactly. How much it costs, we don't know exactly either. And then, we started cooperating with one of Estonian companies to help us to start running this implementation process. But at some point, we had this workshop and gathered some people from our organizations, but still, we quite soon understood that, well, it doesn't work out, you know. It wasn't anything wrong with this company, with this external company, who helped us to organize the workshops and did some presentations and so on. But as a Klamox, as an organization inside, we were not ready for this impact still. And we realized together with one of my colleagues that, well, we must actually stop this cooperation. We must take a small stop and start actually really working with our managers, for example. Because even if the strategy development, sustainability strategy was developed and confirmed by the managers, yes, they were with us, but not fully. And therefore, it was actually a little bit difficult to push through some of the key activities. And I completely understand why they weren't not fully with us, because sustainability actually costs. And I have some sample cases as well. I have some cases where you can actually make a very good financial benefit, you know, if you do some environmental practices. But in the end, when you go very serious with the sustainability agenda, then it actually starts cost money, and you must do investments. And these investments actually are not giving the money back to you so quickly as maybe the normal business investment as they are expecting. So therefore, it was a little bit difficult. So we stopped the cooperation with this external company, and instead of this, we decided that we must actually work with our own people more dedicatedly, and especially, again, mentioning that the leadership board that was need to be get more engaged with our strategy. But in the end, all of this process, obviously I have quite a lot of those different practice layers, but I just picked some of those here. But in the end, I would say that this was actually a good decision. And now we have just looked a partner when we need some special help, you know, yeah? And that's actually been one of the key learnings for us. For example, if we take this EU taxonomy, yeah, how to do this, do no significant harm assessment and things like that, then we just make sure that we have the raw competence ready inside our organization, and then we just ask some specific questions and help just to summarize it, not to do the full work for us. So we have definitely a better understanding how to cut the emissions, and if we do the activities, they are definitely more targeted. Where we are today. Today, we have managed actually to sell the idea that we need a sustainability engineers. So we have 2 sustainability engineers in our 2 biggest factories, one in Keila and then also in Molde, in Norway. We do the quarterly scope 1 and 2 reporting, mainly the production sites, but also the sales offices are now not fully, but majority is included. 2023, what are the topics for this year is that a few weeks back we also signed a contract with one of the platforms which helps us to calculate accurate scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions, because when few years back it was more talked about that you must take a commitment to the sustainability, you must take a commitment to the science-based target. And now it's more about to talk about the data quality. You know, it's not anymore about the commitment, but it's what you report and how accurate the numbers are. yes, we do this scope 1 and 2 reporting right now from the business units to me, and I evaluate this, but to actually to be aligned with the science-based target, which is also our ambition during next year, then you must be a little bit more accurate. And this is not just to make also let's say more reliable to the financial companies as well, because the sustainability, our sustainability KPIs are also now related already with the financial institutions. So with the banks, for example, what kind of conditions you will get? You will say that, well, our target is to be net zero, but you have a shorter targets like zero waste to the landfill, yeah. And they will start measuring you. Okay, you have this target. How you are actually progressing? So, and these sort of things are coming into the agenda. Then. Also, in a previous speak, it was mentioned that this EPD, which is the Environmental Product Declaration. It was yesterday, actually, when we, Klamox, launched our first EPD. We have developed out EPD generator together with one of the Norwegian association. So we have a tool to generate EPDs for our products. And we see that this is very important milestone because it helps us to understand what is in our products, and also our customers can see how much and what is actually put it in, and start evaluating, like comparing with other brands. Yeah, and definitely we see that this is the companies, if they don't have this environmental product declaration for their products, then this can be a business breaker actually in a future. But obviously it means quite a lot of work for our engineers, for the procurement department, and so on. Then the plan is actually to start with the quarterly focus topics in a group. Just yeah, this is also part of the sharing the knowledge. What I have not written there, but hopefully this will be also in the agenda in 2023, that the sustainability will be a part of monthly business reviews. As I said, the sustainability isn't anymore something that you can separate from financial agenda. They are actually moving together now. And if you keep it completely separately, then it's not just actually a very good solution. Yeah. But let's take actually even 2 steps even more deeper into the sustainability in industrial company. When it's actually quite clear what the scope 1 and 2 means for the manufacturing unit, then the scope 3 is way more harder actually to explore. Yeah. But when we start exploring this, then it's important to. Does this also? It's not working. Yeah. But to start exploring this, it is also important to know what are the playing rules. And what I have realized is that if you really would like to achieve our ESG goals, then it really requires cross-functional approach. It can't be so that we have a sustainability team who's working with sustainability. It doesn't work out. Really not. Let's put it that way. The companies have tried with the quality management, yeah, and that's not actually good. So. What else is important to point out is that there's a lot of changes all the time happening. So this is what we must actually understand. Yes, there are times when things are changing very fast, and this is something that don't change. So this will be us, definitely. Then we have processes. Regarding the process, my opinion is that process doesn't matter so much. It matters, what matters the flow, workflow. And why I'm actually saying is that, for example, if you take our one of our company's manufacturing units in Poland, yeah, they are very actually strict on the processes. How, yeah, we have done it this for years and years, and they don't want to let it free, you know. Yes, this is our process, and we will do it like this. It doesn't matter, you know. What matters the flow. If the data say something different, you must be able to adapt and change quickly. And this is what this agility actually means. Not only to be able to change your routines, but you must be able to change quickly. And obviously, of course, this continuous improvement. If you have already done some activity, finished, then it's not actually the finish. You must start again, evaluate what you can do differently, and where you can actually improve. But coming back to this scope 1 and 2, as I mentioned, it's relatively easy for the production units to understand what needs to be done there. You know, you really purchase some fuel to your cars to run. You purchase some electricity, district heat, and you really must work with this basically. But the scope 3, yeah, there the sustainability really start actually costs and making the impact. As I mentioned, it is, for example, the EPD. The goods that we purchase and our products are manufactured, you know, what kind of materials we are using. Is it renewable material, non-renewable material, recycled material, plastic versus cardboard, components, scrap rate, what we are actually getting from our suppliers, basically how reliable those suppliers are, and so on. What we are using, why we are using, and etc. You know, these are quite heavy discussions. And if you really would like to push it through or make an impact, then, as I said, you know, it starts cost money. But in some cases, actually, even if you have made the decision that you would like to use more renewable material in your packaging, for example, then some materials nowadays are not so easily available because there's quite a big demand, what you also must consider. Obviously, under the scope 3, there are more topics, but I have listed the topics here that the Klamox has the biggest impact, basically. Yeah. Definitely the transport to explore. You know, yeah. If you have to report the scope 3 emissions, then you must be able to split the transport to the different modes: is the road, air, sea, and so on. The waste, definitely, waste is quite a big agenda actually, and I have in my previous slide, when we go even more deeper into the activities, some of the samples, and I explain why the waste topic is also rather complicated for the industrial companies to solve. Business travel, yeah. Luckily, this I can't. Maybe it's not very good to say luckily, but let's say the COVID, if it had something good, then it at least cut some business travels. And now we are more sitting in online meetings, and this was at least a good one. But yeah, the business travel or transport in general, you know, the shift to the electrical vehicles, definitely strong debate. Yeah, but again, I see this electrical vehicle in the companies more like this is coming anyway. You know, we don't have to enforce or push it too much inside the Klamox. At least in this segment, there's been some decisions made so that helps this shift. And then, as mentioned, the use of sold products. As I mentioned, the biggest part of the emissions actually happening during the use phase. And end of the life treatment of sold products, basically it means how recyclable our products are. When we, for example, take down this luminaire, how can we actually take it so many pieces that we can recycle all the parts, or it's not so? So definitely something that we must work with our goods. Luckily, it's not actually a very big issue in Klamox. In a history, it was so that the navy industry, for example, they were very much interested to getting luminaires which were sealed, and sealed luminaires, with a glue, and it was very difficult to take in pieces to separate the glass from the aluminium body, for example. But also they don't want it anymore, and they have said that, well, this is not something they want to see. So everything must be recyclable and be able to take in pieces during the end of the use phase. Yeah. As I said, let's take even more few depths deeper, and I have actually listed few cases here regarding the activities that industrial company can do in different areas. And as I mentioned, this waste recycling is actually quite a big challenge. What you must do is to really cooperate very well with your partners. Is it the supplier or is the company who recycles your waste? What do they can do? How do they recycle? Can they do it differently? What you must do so that, for example, your plastic waste end up generating heat, for example. Because in Klamox, we definitely would like to see that that as much as possible we send to the recycling. Yeah. But when this electricity is mentioned already several times, then definitely one of the very low cost activities what manufacturing companies can do, and others of course also, but probably the biggest effect comes out when there's like a bigger electricity consumption behind. But if you take, for example, the standby electricity, just take your facility and look what is consuming electricity when they don't have to do it. Very simple thing what you can do. And in manufacturing company, you can actually monitor, the air leakages, ventilation, heaters, lighting, and etc. So, and as I mentioned, you must cooperate with your suppliers as well to find better solutions, so that what you're actually getting in as a waste, and when you take your goods out from there, and when you send the waste into the recycling plant, then they can really recycle what you are sending there. For example, why did we replace this plywood box to the cardboard? The reason was that the plywood was treated with some chemicals, and basically it ended up in a heating plant. It was not possible to do anything else with this. Obviously, of course, if you would have looked some other company who can use it in their own production, this would have been also possible. This is something what we are doing with those plastic pallets. Then very simple things what you can also do is to look the packaging as such. The packaging as such, and just reduce the air that you transport. Good. And okay, as I mentioned it, just the last slide regarding this electricity consumption. And in the beginning, I also say that the best combination is if you combine energy efficient luminaires and light management system, and it is actually possible to reduce electricity consumption quite rapidly. And lastly, one thing what I would like to actually repeat what was mentioned already before as well, that the best energy is the saved energy that you haven't actually used. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have this little gift for you here as well.
Thanks.
All right, we will have a small panel discussion, so everybody's supposed to be part of that can come up. I guess we will sit in the front row. While people are getting seated, I can mention mainly in the oil and gas industry now, if you send something with a pallet, and the pallet doesn't have a stamp that says that it's made from recycled material, they will not actually accept the delivery. So it's become to that level at the moment as well. I think I will walk around to pass the mic, I think. Or we have more mics to pass around? If you start on switch. So we will have a small. Yes, now this one is on. No, maybe now, maybe later, maybe soon. Okay, anyway, we'll have a small discussion about the panel, small panel on sustainable innovation. But let's maybe introduce the speakers first, if we go from your side.
It's working, yeah. My name is Teele. I'm from Citybox Tallinn Hotel. And the connection with the Norwegian-Estonian Chamber of Commerce is that Citybox is established in 2006 in Norway.
So hello, my name is Katrin. I work for Telia, run communications and sustainability. And we do work a lot with digitalization, new technologies, etc. And sustainable innovation is kind of a super important part of that, to keep a sustainable view or a long-term view when innovating. So I guess that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I guess you already know why I'm here.
Yeah, same with me, but who's new here? Andres Veske from Green Tiger.
Yeah. So I will just kick it off a little bit with a small question. So basically, typically, we are looking for the low-hanging fruits in innovation in general, right? So do everybody, one of you, keep a track of what would be the kind of most impact for as little cost as possible, or how do you approach basically innovation for sustainability in your organization?
Ladies first.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you know about Citybox, but in Citybox we don't have a typical check-in desk as in normal hotels, which means that the guest is doing the check-in and check-out by themselves in the kiosk, and also the payment, which means that the labor cost is lower for us. Though we don't keep the quality of the rooms is really high. And yeah, this is the one way we're keeping the cost level low, but also like the room is really good. Though we say we're a budget hotel, then we don't do the budget things in the room, or also not in the hotel. But regarding the price, of course the price is important for the products, but for us it's more important the footprint. And of course we can go and buy the furniture from IKEA, but will it last in a hotel for the 10, 15, 20 years? Most likely it will not, which means that we will invest into the good furniture. Same with our partners. We choose the partners based on their footsteps and what they do for the sustainability. And let's say like opening the hotel, all the products actually which arrived at the hotel, we sent back the packages. So we had the agreement advance with the companies. Let's say we have 544 beds. So you can just calculate how much packages it is. So we send it all back. So we had the agreement advance.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I was actually thinking maybe I take one small step back just to a little bit try to define what is sustainable innovation from our point of view, from a company like Telia or Telco and tech company point of view, because I think there are actually at least 3 super important sides to, if you digitalize, if you innovate, if you launch new technologies, what should you keep in mind in order to be sustainable? One of them I think is a social aspect. So basically doing this not for the sake of doing this, but doing this human in the center, user in the center. And that means anything around accessibility. So if you provide new digital services, new technologies to make sure that everybody can access them, hearing impairments, vision impairments, whatnot. There are different people. They should also all be able to enjoy and use the opportunities, right? So also digital inclusion, so you make sure that no one's left behind. So I think we have a huge problem in Estonia with senior population, actually. We know from different research that people over 70, there's almost 2/3 of them who think at least that their skills within digital environments are not sufficient, and that means they are left out of all our great public services and so on and so forth. So how do you work with stuff like that? So a social aspect in innovation. Environmental aspect is another one, obviously. So how do you provide products and services and digitalization so that it does not harm environment? On the contrary, it has a positive impact, so reduces negative footprint, increases positive handprint. And also, last but not least, it's the safety or security. So how can digitalization needs to be safe, it needs to be secure, and it's of utmost importance nowadays. Obviously, we all know that cyber attacks and everything is on increase and it's getting more sophisticated and so on. So now back to your, just to a little bit like provide a floor. So what are the axes we are discussing here? But back to your question about low-hanging fruits. I don't know how low or high-hanging, but one of the things from our sector is that has a huge footprint environmentally is devices. So for Telia, for instance, when we calculate our scope 3, then devices is up to 80%. Actually, both the devices we buy from around the world and then the devices that consume electricity, consume energy at our customers, B2B, B2C. So how do we increase circular economy? How do we increase circularity of devices is one of the things that we try to do. We are nowhere there, but there are many things that you can do. Starting from using super really high quality devices to expand the lifespan and then reusage, of course, device as a service, so renting devices instead of just selling them, utilizing them responsibly and so on. So anything that can be done around devices and circular economy, I think is very important, and some of it could be low-hanging fruit.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. I think in Klamox context as a manufacturing company, you can split it like two. What we do in our production facilities and then what we provide basically to our customers. When we look as a production or manufacturing unit, then probably one of the low-hanging fruits that you can take is go to the paperless. You know, if you take a Keila factory as a sample, then we are using tablets from where the assembly people can take the drawings, you know, instead of using paper. It has a two-side benefits. You know, it's you can guarantee the quality that they always have the right documents instead of printing and replacing those. It's just somebody must do it, you know. But if you have this process digitalized, then it's way more secured. On a group side, definitely taking in use some smart platforms like to screen our suppliers or analyzing our spend. Yeah, taking this sort of smart platforms in use. And obviously, yeah, if you look from the customer side, then the best is to buy. For the customer point of view, the low-hanging fruit is to replace the luminaires. You know, it's it's definitely good, but then please try to combine it with a light management system as well. You know, it's otherwise it might happen so that you have a good LED luminaire in your room, but it's still burning when you don't need it. You know, it's, well.
Yes, I'm not really sustainability specialist, but I know that there are some new business models in the market that, for example, instead of buying furniture from IKEA, you can rent it. Or Amsterdam airport, in my opinion, they do not buy lights, they rent it. They buy light as a service. Yes, and Philips provides this, but this is what I heard. But generally, I would say that this low fruit is we have to quit subsidize consumption. And that is very simple, but it needs to be, of course, a political decision in this case. This winter we survive with the help of subsidies, but in the future I hope that we will not do it anymore. As I mentioned before, that it was very well observed that we reduced our consumption where the energy prices were higher than they are right now. They are still high, but government pays the rest. And the message in this case is that you can continue heat your pool. That never mind, we pay anyway, so you can continue. And this is the wrong message. But generally, of course, we have to manage our consumption. We have to have even more than we do now. District energy, district cooling, district heating, because it works just much more efficient than local solutions. And there is no other way that to have this green transition and to have renewable energy on the market more than we do.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, of course we are quite a diverse group here present today, but we mentioned Estonian government here quite a few times already, and what the incentives are. You mentioned subsidies are happening, but what could the Estonian government do more that would help your business to focus on sustainability? Does anybody dare to jump into that one?
I can maybe start, because as I'm very much also working to calculate the emissions, what I have felt is that it's so difficult to actually find the emission factors. I mean, if we have a big target regarding reducing the emissions, why the emission factors must be so hidden, or why they must be locked somewhere, or why we have to pay to get those emission factors to calculate our emissions so that we can do the impact. Yes, as a Klamox, as I mentioned it, well, we have now the platform, which we will take in use, and we will get those factors. But there's so many companies who will not bother actually start calculating the emissions if it's so complicated road. It was maybe week back or so when I actually noticed that this association SEI, they have actually published some guidelines and like a book. How you can calculate your scope 1, 2, and 3, and they have the emission factors there. But it's coming like, it must be quicker and more visible and more available better.
I was actually recently thinking about the same question, because I had a very thorough interview for Rohetiger. I had to answer the same questions, and I was struggling a bit. I think in some terms we are doing fine in Telia. We are doing quite a lot, and then we don't feel there are huge barriers to stop us. What I would benefit from is to have a big picture from the state, basically. So what is the green transformation combined with, which I really believe in, a digital transformation? How can we combine the two? And then what can the tech sector then do? What are the priorities? How do we move forward? Because that would also be like a guiding light for companies like us, so we can also choose our priorities according to that. If to talk about like, I don't know, more practical or smaller stuff, still back to the devices. And by the way, again, low-hanging fruit for all of you, consider a reused device next time you buy something. And there are many opportunities available. Then reducing VAT from reused devices sold, for instance, is something that could help to boost that type of circular economy.
I totally agree with you. It's a good point. But from the government, more visibility, more clearer messages for the companies, and maybe some incentives for the companies who are doing the environmental friendly things.
I think we'll be a little bit sneaky, and maybe also allow you to raise a question, if you don't mind. Since you're
yes, Katrin was actually right. Yes, as a Rohetiger, Green Tiger, we asked this question from our members, and 2 of those are our members. So Citybox not yet, but they will. I'm quite sure. And what was the question?
No, basically what the Estonian government should do.
Yeah,
But I was thinking,
and absolutely, yes.
but maybe you could ask a new question altogether.
No, actually, as a Green Tiger, we try to influence also the government, and actually we have almost every month, we have a very serious conversation and dialogue together with Minister of Economy. And right now, yes, we talking about energy only, not about circular economy or the other issues, because energy is most important. And I would say that, to our government side, that we have quite okay government in if we consider those issues what we have here. Maybe yes, this story about this LNG looks not very good, but I wouldn't blame this government. I would say that maybe the last one was who to point with a finger. So I would say that basically we're doing things. Our government right now is quite okay in this basis. Let's see. We have elections in March. what we will have in the future?
We have a new plan in June for sure. If not, there will be a reshuffling, as we've seen before. With regards to electric cars, it has been mentioned here a little bit before today as well. Do your company, etc., do anything in the direction? You have a hotel? Do you have charging stations and those kind of things, or? Yep.
We are renting, so we have a landlord who owns the garage. But I know that in their long-term goal is to have the charging docks in the garage. And but we as a hotel, we have the bicycle storage room, so we are and also giving the notice for the customers to use more public transport, noting down where the nearest tram stations or bus stations are, and we are suggesting customers to use public transport more instead of taxis.
Yeah, so a company like Telia has actually quite a big fleet park because we have technicians, etc. So we've been changing that to electric cars. And yes, we provide charging stations also for our people, our employees. When they come to the office in the parking house, they would have quite a few of those. So we do stuff like that, maybe even more impactfully or importantly in terms of broader impact. We want to launch new technologies that enable that type of spread. So 5G is an example, because 5G enables that type of quick connectivity. So we have different use cases in the making. And for instance, we work with Elmo Rent, which is now providing cars that are driven to you, remotely driven to you basically without a human driver and so on and so forth. So that is also possible with those new generation mobile technologies.
Yeah, definitely also Klamok's approach is that the fleet goes EV. You know, it can't end any other way anyway, but we are not actually pushing it too hard right now either. But let's put it that way, that EV is preferred actually now more than it was before. And it's because of the reasons that if you have a sales engineer who must drive to your customer, well, then before it was the distance you must travel actually. One of the issues that EV wasn't maybe the best solution because, you know, the range 300 kilometers or less than 400 kilometers wasn't a good option. For example, if you have a customer in Poland and you are doing work there, where the charging station isn't so well developed or covered the country as in Norway. In Norway, we have analyzed that this is not a very big issue, but from another hand, we also see that using company car, the employees, they have also some special needs for those cars, you know, so that you have the hook for the car, so that you can, you know, take the trailer. And you must consider these things as well, not only going EV, but yeah. But definitely we are going this way also. So
EVs they're making sense, of course, if you use green energy. Otherwise, in Estonia, we still use some 85% is coming from fossil fuel, so it doesn't make any sense right now. And furthermore, I would say that on the LCA basis, any new car, even its EV, has impact to environment, and that's why I think the public transportation is the share of public transportation increasing. We can see it, and I hope actually that Tallinn-Tartu road will be the last one which has 4 lanes. Because obviously we do not need via Baltica with 4 lanes if we have Rail Baltic working, and we can see already that the people are not driving so much. They are not using cars anymore so much. They're obviously the reason that the fuel is so expensive, and the public transportation, which is free in Tallinn. It's popular again. Of course, there's many disadvantages in this case, but this is another discussion, I think. Personally, I'm using EV. I'm satisfied, but I'm using also green energy, and in this case, it makes sense. Yes, Katrin.
I was actually thinking the same. How many of us use EVs here personally? Because I had a story, and I have to shamefully admit that I use luckily an old car, which is diesel car, but it's relatively old, and I've been feeling bad about it for a couple of last years, working more deeply with sustainability. And at some point I decided, okay, now I'll go for a hybrid or EV. And then I started to do some research, and then I heard some podcasts on lithium batteries and whatnot, and then I was totally confused, and then there was supply shortage also. So, and then somebody smart told me that, keep using this old diesel car. It is actually has the least environmental impact, the same as you said. I mean, you buying a new car definitely has an impact. So, but I very much agree with you on public transportation or different ways of mobility that replace having your own car, basically.
Yeah, the analysis what I have done is showing is that the EV actually makes sense if you have a decent distance that you actually travel. If you use the car only driving in the city, then it doesn't make sense. It just keep your own car or take a public transport. But if you have like 20-40 kilometers to drive per day, it doesn't make sense actually. So, yeah.
Our next roadmap is going to be about buildings. And those guys who are doing this roadmap, they have very strong concept that in the cities and energy-wise, the cities are right place to live in. And they have a concept that everything in the cities must be within 15 minutes to walk. So you don't need actually a car in the future, or you use it less.
I will have one last one, and this I really noticed from Norway, because we started with waste separation management very, very early. So almost 20 years ago, I think we all had 3 bins outside. Of course, we had run-in problems as usual, because we figured out that basically they emptied all the same stuff in the same place after, at least the first couple of years. But we started somewhere. This is, and in my local government where I used to live, I was allowed to burn my own trash up until last year, actually. So I wasn't even obligated to have even getting collected my waste. How do you kind of deal with that in your respective businesses as well? Are you good at that, at waste management, basically in form of?
Can I start?
Yep.
It's terrible, I would say. We have satellite in the space from Estonia. We have e-government, whatever, and we cannot manage our garbage. That is terrible. Of course, one of the reasons that we do not have any circular economy on the market is that we're burning it. And if you have a case where you can give away your garbage, and instead of paying for that, they pay for you. So it makes sense that you do not have any circular economy, and you just burn everything and make it to energy. Of course, it's much better solution than just to put it on the landfill, but I think it will end also very soon. Okay.
Yeah, in Klamox definitely we have the one very strong target is that zero waste must go to the landfill. So this is what we what we work with to achieve. When we think about the waste handling and sorting, then definitely the situation is better in manufacturing places because they have, most of the factories actually, they have these environmental standards implemented, and they are kind of like doing. Obviously, we must have, as I mentioned, the good communication also with waste handling partners, and to see that they really send, or let's say to recycle the waste that they really can recycle. Just not putting to the heating plant, but they also depends on us what we are actually giving to them as well. So it's a two-side cooperation. With the sales offices, it looks a little bit more complicated. They especially already how to get the data. What let's say the office buildings, what do they do with the waste? How much is going to recycling? How much going to the energy and landfill? They don't actually own this data. So just to get the understanding what actually happens with the waste, it's already quite complicated. But yeah.
So in Telia, we also have a zero waste target 2030. We are working towards it, and then there are some stuff that is maybe easier to achieve. Of course, own waste sorting and so on and so forth, changing own people's habits within our own operations. But I guess most or the biggest chunk of our waste comes from infrastructure, and there it's relatively complex, because on one hand, what you should do and what we are doing, you should change older technologies to new, right? Because the new are in most of the times more environmentally friendly, more safe, etc. One example is 3G, from 3G to 5G. So we're closing 3G network by the end of next year. We are launching now 5G. 5G is much more sort of energy efficient and also much safer than the previous Gs. But we cannot keep them all running at the same time, because then, of course, the energy efficiency and all of that doesn't come true. But with going to newer technologies, obviously, you need to change devices and then so on and so forth. So there will be waste. So how to calculate that and how to balance the way that the overall outcome is positive in the end. So yeah, we are working with all of that, and we have ambitious goals, but we are not fully there yet, to put it that way.
Can I tweak the question slightly for you, because you also have served food for breakfast in the morning?
No, we don't.
Oh, you don't have nothing, no food waste, no whatsoever.
You don't know the concept. So we don't sell rooms with a breakfast. We have the partner cafe, so we don't run the cafe, but we do have the guest kitchen, where the guest can prepare the food. So we are sorting the garbage there. We have the bio waste, the general, the paper and the cardboard and the bottles and stuff. So this is separately. And we, of course, we accept and suggest customers to sort it. It doesn't always happen, because people mind is that they are in the hotel, they are on holiday, they don't care. Though they do it maybe at home, but they don't do it in the hotel. So, of course, we have the signs, we talk, we suggest, but it doesn't happen all the time. What else we do? Of course, we sort, but we are trying to find partners who are like taking back the packages and recycling them. And now, actually, we are starting to do cooperation with an Estonian startup company who is making pillows and blankets from plastic bottles. And they also take back the old blankets and the pillows from the hotel, and they do recycle them. So we are trying to find all the time these kind of partners, so we can reduce our footprint.
Okay.
Can I add something? Yes, to be not totally negative, I would point out also some positive things that just recently, last week, it was when the new station of biogas production was opened in Maardu, close to Tallinn, and all this organic food waste goes there, and they just turn it also to biogas and later on to biomethane, and it goes to transportation. And I would say that in agriculture at all, the waste management is quite okay, because they can turn it into energy. But otherwise, the energy sector is the biggest waste maker in Estonia. And I think per capita, we are the biggest waste producers in Europe, maybe, because of this oil shale industry.
Per capita, you're usually winning everything. So I'm kind of used to that one being utilized here in Estonia. But okay, we will round it up. I want to say thank you everybody for joining in. I have gifts for you that are coming. I hope you all enjoyed it, and then see you again soon on the next event we might have. Thanks.
Thank you.